So many. Okay, as you're ready.
Okay, we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
In five, four, three, two, one.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. I want to, first of all, apologize for the late start and also to wish each and every one of you, including all Barbadians, a Happy New Year. This is the first opportunity that I've had to speak to the country, and I really wish everybody the best for the rest of 2023. I have with me this afternoon Minister Wilfred Abrams, who is Acting Attorney General. I also have with me Dr. Rommel Springer, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Transport and Works, Dr. Clyde Maskell, Ambassador, who is also part of our economic team, is also present. My permanent secretary, Mr. Mark Cummins, and also accompanying me, who are really the stars of this particular press conference, are the members of the taxi associations at the Grantley Adams International Airport. To my left is Mr. Moore, who is the director of the Barbados Transport Cooperative Society. Mr. Harewood is also on the far end. He's the president of the Barbados Transport Cooperative Society, and Mr. Anthony Bunthorne, who is from the In-Flight Taxi Association. A few moments ago, we would have concluded discussions with the various stakeholders, legal counsel from the CPC, members of the hotel sector as well from the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., and representatives of the Ministry of Transport and Works. And we entered into discussions. As you know, last week the taxi operators would have raised some concerns regarding the slow pace at which the increase in taxi fares would have been coming. I would have indicated then that we had some challenges in terms of the drafting, being able to get things in place prior to the start of the tourist season, but gave the assurance that in short order we would be in a position to keep on the promise that we had made 7 months ago as it relates to the increase in the taxi fares. Now, the truth of the matter is that this issue has been long-standing. It has been one that I think both successive administrations have had to confront. We made a commitment when we came to office that we were going to address the issue of the taxi fares that had not been increased since 2008. And immediately on coming to office, we would have started the process of engaging with the various stakeholders. We would have engaged Dr. Clyde Maskell to also look at the fare structures that existed within the sector, to make some comparative analyses with the region, also to look at the input costs and the operational costs, which many of our operators obviously have to face on a day-to-day basis. This was against a background that we recognized as well that we had to transform the public transportation sector. So on the one hand, we knew that we had to increase the fares, but we also appreciated that the world is changing, and by the world changing, it also means that tourists have a different expectation as well as locals in relation to how they use public transportation. Therefore, it means that while we increase fares, we also had a responsibility to look at other measures that could be put in place to allow locals and tourists to be able to have the opportunity to have a better experience when they're booking a taxi across the island, when they arrive at the airport, and when they traverse across Barbados. As a consequence, we also indicated that we would want to introduce in a few months the taxi metering app. Now, as of today, what we have discussed with the various stakeholders is a position where we have agreed that at Cabinet that we are prepared to increase the taxi fares. We have a new schedule that will now be published hopefully by tomorrow. We will be able to have that gazetted. That will therefore give, for the first time, taxi operators a fare increase that they have not had for 15 years. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of the persons who have worked assiduously to get us to this point. Also to the taxi operators for their patience as well. I know at times they keep some noise in relation to concerns that they've had, but I think at the crux of it is really, certainly from our end, a belief at the level of government that these persons require the opportunity to have a fair and level playing field, just as everybody else within the transport sector. One of the things that concerned us and really brought this to a head was the disparity in the rates that existed. For instance, if you went from the seaport to the airport, you were paying $80. If you were coming from the airport to the seaport, you were paying $46. These things are not right, and we believe that attempts had to be made to not only understand better the challenges that operators were facing, but to bring some level of parity to this situation. As such, Ambassador Maskell, and I really want to thank him as well for the work that he has done. It has been stellar work, very outstanding in terms of his commitment to seeing this through. He's met with all of the various stakeholders. He's led the discussions at various levels. He's guided the ministries, guided the cabinet, and based on the expressions that have come back from him, he would have recommended to us a new fare structure which took into account all of the input costs that the operators currently face, all of the costs in terms of insurance and fuel. As you know, we've had the issues of raising fuel through no fault of our own. But it has taken into account those factors to be able to ensure that we have a standard fare setting that allows for people to be able to earn a decent living. We regret that this has been long in coming, but I feel that now that we've had particularly these discussions, not only today but New Year's Day, we had the opportunity to speak with the associations, and we've been able to agree that while the fare structure will be changed, effective from tomorrow, we are also working together on rolling out the taxi app in the coming months. Our intention is therefore to continue to meet, to look at some of the other teething issues that the association has, and to ensure that both the commuters as well as the operators are in a position to know with clear confidence what the cost of travel from one destination to the other is likely to be. And that is really the objective, I believe, for both the association, the tourism entities, and certainly the Ministry of Transport and Works as well. And therefore, I have asked Minister Abrams and the team at CPC to assist with the drafting so that we can expedite this process. As I said, Cabinet is in agreement with the process, but as you know, these things have to go through other formalities, and therefore, coming out of our meeting this morning, those things will be put in place and effective tomorrow. Once published, taxi operators in this country will be able to, and in particular those at the airport, will for the first time in 15 years be given the opportunity to have a significant fare increase across the board. I welcome this opportunity to be able to be the bearer of this news. The truth is, apart from Dr. Maskell, there have been my predecessors who would have worked tirelessly as well to have met with the sector and to deliver on the promise of the Prime Minister. I was remarking to Mr. Moore earlier that we're back in, I think, 2018. We would have led a team through with the then leader of the opposition, Prime Minister Motley, who would have visited the taxi operators and heard their concerns. I think Minister Simmons at the time was with us as well. And we understood then, as we do now, how important and significant this particular position that we have taken is to the sector. And we therefore look forward to fruitful discussions taking place over the course of the next few weeks and months with the stakeholders to be able to fine-tune a few things with a view to being able to roll out the taxi metering app within the next few months. I think we've set some timelines that we're going to try to keep to, which is that we have the app is in its early stages, but we have to have the input of the stakeholders. We're hoping that with this change today, that the operators will be able to hit the ground running, but it certainly will prepare them for the next tourist season as well. We are hopeful that by the end of April, we would have concluded our discussions and would be in a position then to have perhaps a full rollout of the taxi app by the 1st of July. Of course, as you know, things sometimes change, but those are the commitments and the agreements that we have made here this morning in an effort to indicate the seriousness with which this administration believes that these operators have, in a sense, been unfared for too long. and we need to bring some level of justice and fairness to how they operate. People must be able to eat in this country comfortably without having to protest and without having to raise alarm. And therefore, I am pleased that on behalf of the government, on behalf of the cabinet, that I can proudly announce that we have fulfilled yet another obligation to the people of this country. Though long in coming, but we have been able to fulfill it with the assistance of all of the stakeholders. And we look forward certainly to being able to work with them to complete the transformation that is necessary in public transportation. I'm going to ask Mr. Moore at this point, who is the spokesperson on behalf of the other associations at the airport, just to address you as well, and again to thank him and the team for being here with us this morning. Mr. Moore?
Good afternoon.
Hold on, Mr. Moore. Slate.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the press. Good afternoon to everyone. We're really grateful for what have transpired in this meeting this morning. We are satisfied with the increase, and we're thankful to the government, all the technocrats, all the persons that work from behind the scenes. We're so grateful to you. Rates look good, so going back to my guys, they should be satisfied when I go back to them after this conference, and we're really grateful. We're really, really, really grateful, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. I don't know if there are any questions from the press, but we'll quickly entertain a few questions. Of course, Carlos. Yeah. Sorry, Colville.
I'm going to start with a two-pronged question, Minister. Firstly, and I think Ambassador Maskell may need to weigh in on the second part of this question, especially. Well, firstly, could you give us an idea of the percentage of the rate increase?
You heard Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore is extremely happy.
Yeah, well, as happy as Mr. Moore is, the public is still in the dark as to what exactly
we
it
will
is.
publish those figures by tomorrow. As I said, allow the process to take place, but it is a significant increase compared to what they would have had before, and bearing in mind that it is an increase that is long overdue. I want to reiterate, this is 15 years, so it's not just a simple case of 100% increase, but it is 100% increase that has really not been given over, or any increase that has been given over that period of time. And as I said earlier, Dr. Maskell has looked at the rates. With the seaport, I gave the example as well as to what the others are charging in the sector, and it is simply not fair to allow these operators to continue without these increases available to them.
And the second part of my question, now obviously I don't want to rain on the parade of the taxi operators who are in very good spirits having received this increase. However, this increase comes at a time when Barbados is reeling from high inflation. The country is regarded as one of the most expensive tourist destinations. From an economic perspective, Dr. Maskell or anyone else, how do we square that component, that factor, inflation, high cost of tourist destination, with the increase now the added cost of transportation?
Something called fairness has to engage any economic activity. So I'm sure that if you were in a business where you were still using rates designed in 2008, you'd be very unhappy. So it is not right that this small group should have suffered such a misfortune. And as a result, all we are seeking here to do is to rectify and to put in place what should be. This is justice.
But as much as that's understood, I mean, do you foresee it adding to the inflation
well, it's not about the inflation. What in this instance it is about what is right. There has been increases in the cost of diesel. in the cost of gasoline, increases in the cost of vehicles, increases in insurance, parts, every such thing. So why should this particular group not be able to increase the price of a commodity 15 years later? And as a result, I don't think that you can fault it. The other thing is that most of what they will recoup will come, as you are saying, from visitors. So I can't see how a visitor could expect that he or she should still pay a taxi fare for as far back as 2008. It's called justice.
It's a concerns raised from the Alliance for Public Transport. They say that they've been trying to get in touch with you. There are some issues that they want addressed. Just to be issues related to potholes, overgrown bus stops, taxi operators in the city needing better facilities. They say they've been reaching out to you trying to get a meeting, and they've been unsuccessful thus far.
I think it is fair to say that all of the concerns of the persons that we have responsibility over are important. There are times, however, where some take greater priority in terms of the setting of meetings. We've just come out of the Christmas period. I think you can appreciate a lot of the not only the officers, but a lot of people have been off. So in fairness, we are at the start of the new year. I expect the Alliance and others to say that they want to have meetings, and we will facilitate those meetings in the course of this month and next month. So they can be assured that the meetings will come in due course. But those concerns that have been raised, the issue of potholes, we address those issues on a day-to-day basis. That's not an issue of the Alliance alone. I think you yourself, sir, I'm sure, has challenges with potholes across the country, and we are working as a ministry to try to address those issues. I think people forget from time to time that the fact that we did not have significant repairs and rehabilitative work to our roads for such a long time has resulted in a further deterioration of the roads. That has been compounded by the fact that climate change is taking place at a rapid rate. I don't know any night this week that I have not had significant rainfall, sudden rainfall, waking me from my sleep. And that impacts on contractors, it impacts on the ability of the ministry staff to be able to execute its works. So it is not that the ministry is deliberately trying to increase the cost for the road users by not filling potholes, but the truth is sometimes we go and we fill them and the rain comes down, and next day or two the hole is open back up again. So while we have been able to access significant financing to be able to start projects in, for instance, the Scotland District through the IDB, the CAF projects, roads do not build overnight. So once you unlock the financing, you have to then move to the next step of doing, whether it's design, engagement of contractors, the tendering process has to take place, the supervision of the works has to take place before you can get to a point where you see the full uptake of what has been invested. And I think that Barbadians need to appreciate at this point that we have been able to unlock, with the help of the economic team, a lot of access to resources to be able to help us now to plan out a lot of the road works that have to be done. So it is not, every road is not going to get done overnight, but we are trying our best with the resources that we have in order to be able to make those changes to alleviate the concerns that our road users have, and certainly commuters as well on the roads as well.
Minister, while you're on the issue of road repairs, if I may give you an opportunity to address one of the concerns raised recently as it relates to the recent rehabilitation of the ABC highway, I think that is. There are some who are saying that there are other roads, especially feeder roads, are in greater need of such repairs. And therefore the question is being asked why not resurfacing of the highway as opposed to concentrating on these other roads. So I just want to give you an opportunity to answer that question.
I'll answer it simply. I did a degree in law. I am not a technical person, I'm not an engineer, and therefore I have to rely on the engineers to tell me whether roads require rehabilitation, whether they require the pothole filling, what they require, okay? The concerns that I may have or you may have in terms of what is visible to the naked eye may not be what the engineers have determined is required in terms of the work that has to be done on that particular road. And so I, like you, have raised the same concerns because I see roads that to me look like they're in worse conditions than the ones that are in our list to be able to have to repair. But if the engineers say to us that based on their assessment of the various roads across the island, that they would have prioritized particular roads at the time because over time those roads are likely to deteriorate further, or that because of the capacity of traffic on those roads, you will find yourself in a situation where the cost long term is going to be significantly more to repair, then we are guided by the persons who are experts in that particular area. So we may not like it, as many of us don't, but the truth is that I have to, just as I would have to take the advice of a doctor, because I'm not a specialist in a particular area, I am guided by the engineers to be able to explain to the country why is it that we have chosen particular roads. Now, I will also point out to you, this particular project with the IDB predated this administration in terms of the selection of the roads. So it is not that we handpick the roads that are being done now, but there were significant delays, and Clyde can tell you, in relation to the execution of these particular projects to get this off of the ground. And therefore, in the process of getting them started, there are other roads that deteriorated while we were waiting for those roads to be started. So you are finding right now that not only the roads that they're doing require work to be done on them, but you are also finding a list of other roads that people have concern with and genuinely so. The long and short of it is that I appreciate the concerns of the public, but I have asked the PR team to engage with not just the press, but also the wider public with a view to helping to break down some of these concerns so that people don't make assumptions that are actually incorrect or not able to be substantiated. Okay?
Final question for me, Minister. I know you said that.
Let me just very short say one thing in relation to also, and this is based on the conversation I was having with some people recently. A small pothole on the highway is way more dangerous in many instances than a large pothole in a secondary road because of the speeds that are driven at the highway and the amount of traffic on the highway at a given time, and cars going in 2 lanes. So it is not apples and apples, right? You have to address faults that appear in the highway a lot faster than you have to address them in the minor roads because the consequences are way more severe from a smaller fault.
Just want to add that I think the public needs to also appreciate that we have 2 major road builders in this country, right? But we have significant amount of work that has to be completed. Obviously, we want to make sure that we are able to accomplish what we have set out to do, and it is going to mean over the course of the next few months and years that we're going to have to open up the market to ensure that we have more players being able to fulfill the expectations that Barbadians have in relation to road infrastructure and road rehabilitation. Now, what I am more concerned about is making sure that works that are started are completed within a timely manner, because it has a significant impact on and causes disruption on road users. And therefore what we have to make sure is that if timelines are set, that those timelines are followed so that the public does not feel significantly inconvenienced. And therefore I speak as a user of the road as well. I'm not just the minister. But I speak as a road user, and it frustrates me as well when we have situations where road works are not completed on time. But I'm also mindful that I live in a Barbados now, as I said before, where climate change is also impacting on the ability of our road contractors to complete their works. So we have to still factor that in when we are critical. We still have to pause sometimes and recognize that it is not business as usual in Barbados. We have a short window within which to complete the roads in relation to the dry season, or what used to be the dry season, but that's also changed as well. So we are facing a number of challenges that do not make for an ideal situation. And all I can again ask is that we make sure that we educate the public as to what those challenges are so that the frustration is significantly reduced as well.
As I said, final question from me, Minister. I know that you said that the rates are going to be published
Yeah.
tomorrow. However, could you tell us as much as it relates to, has it now risen to parity with hotel taxi operators and port taxi operators?
You heard Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore is happy. I expect that the taxi operators are, that when he gets back to them, they will be equally happy. As Dr. Maskell said, this is about justice, this is about fairness, this is about equity. It cannot be right that we continue with a fare structure that has not changed for 15 years. It is not right.
If I may just say
Yeah.
that these rates will now apply to all and sundry,
Correct. So it's a fair across the board.
right across.
Right across the board.
I have a question. As a Minister of Transport and Works, we know that there was an issue with an accident with 2 of the new electronic buses. We knew that you had plans to bring some new buses, and then some of them were taken off. Can you give us an update on that?
We are expecting to have those buses here. I believe Ministry of Energy has ordered those, and those are supposed to be here by, I think, June. Yeah, June, July of this year. And we are also in discussions with Prime Minister and Ministry of Finance. We have our estimates coming up shortly, but it is our anticipation that we will also have the opportunity to procure additional buses. This electric bus fleet is really a flagship for Barbados. The rest of the Caribbean has been coming into Barbados, excited by the opportunities that have been created by us being a trailblazer in this area. It is an area that we really want to continue to pay attention to because it has set us apart in terms of the reductions in fuel costs. And therefore, it is definitely, I think if Dr. Maskell has his way, we will be increasing the fleet significantly over the course of the next couple of years. But yes, the drivers, I believe, are doing well. I'm sure that's what you wanted to ask me as well. And the buses, as you can appreciate, the parts and stuff obviously have to be sourced in order to do the repairs.
What's the issue with the accidents that happened recently? There was an accident with 2 electronic buses.
Right. So I said the drivers are doing well. I can't
Okay,
speak to the nature of the accident. I don't have a police accident report, and I think those investigations are ongoing. So for me, the priority is just making sure that the human beings are well. The buses can be replaced, but we've lost no life as a result of those accidents. Right?
As we are in the building of the Barbados Water Authority, we wanted an update on, we know that last year there were plans that were put in place for people who had to make a payment plan for a delayed payment over the COVID period. Can you give us an update on how that has been going?
The Barbados Water Authority would have spent a lot of time educating the public on the amount of the arrears that were owed, especially through COVID. We took a decision as a government that we were not going to enforce the disconnections, particularly in relation to residential customers. We have been working assiduously to collect on the commercial customers, and that has been going very well. A number of people have entered into payment plans. They have taken the opportunity to come in and to indicate the challenges that they were having. With the residential customers, I believe letters are going out this week to be able to advise them as well that they need to start making payments. But we are also sensitive that you have a number of situations, hardship cases, and we also have situations where people need to be put in a position where they may have leaks at the house, and they don't have the means to be able to carry out those repairs. Therefore, the bill continues to increase, hence the arrears. So the board is currently looking at an approach that would allow for us to be able to address those particular class of persons to see how we can in any way assist.
With regards to the commercial entities, how has that been going with collection?
It has actually been going well. The truth of the matter is that, especially in the tourist season, you find that collections are actually increasing because obviously persons there's a threat to their businesses if they don't pay. So we're finding that those commercial customers have actually been stepping forward and entering into arrangements. And we have been reasonable. Yeah.
With now, we heard that the board was recently replaced. What is the issue that led to that decision, and what is the plan going forward?
I don't know what you tell me. What's the issue? I as minister, I've changed all of my boards. I have that right by law, and therefore I exercise that right in order to be able to make some changes. The Barbados Water Authority, particularly with all of the efforts that the Prime Minister has been making in relation to climate change globally, obviously is going to have to be at the forefront of making significant changes, both in terms of its transition as a state-owned enterprise, the cost-saving measures that it's going to have to put in place, and I think that we needed a different team for the times in order to be able to catapult the organization and to make sure that we can deliver on the responsibilities that we have to the public in relation to water. So it really is, there's no issue whatsoever as far as the board is concerned, right?
Final question?
Yeah, Minister Bradshaw, I mean, we all know these term commencing next
I'm no
week.
longer Minister of Education.
I know, but in terms of
Kidding.
availability of buses for
Yeah.
children with special needs, you can recall
Yeah.
how Paris speaks, individuals spoke of there not always being
Yeah.
a bus available for schools of children with special needs. So just
Yeah.
wanted to know if that is not addressed.
And that is why we have said that even in the procurement of the buses, we're trying to make sure that we include buses that obviously will cater to persons with disabilities as well. I think there's also some discussions ongoing about how we can open up the market more so that persons who might want to bring in vehicles to operate their own transportation systems with persons with disabilities, that they're even better facilitated than they are now.
Minister, as he made mention of people with disabilities, but there are still people who are raising the issue that, especially when school reopens, which is next week,
Yeah.
they're going to see less buses available, especially the transport buses available for the normal commuters, because they will be redirected to students, carrying students. What is the plan for that?
Right. So I believe the Transport Board will make a statement in relation to that if they haven't already. But the challenge, this is an ongoing challenge, and that is why we have been so focused on trying to get the additional electric buses. Obviously, it takes resources in order to purchase the buses to make sure that we have the adequate fleet. But we are having some challenges, as you can appreciate, with the maintenance of the buses. Sometimes the repairs take a little bit longer than we would have expected. The other challenge is that sourcing of the parts sometimes is also presenting some issues. So there are challenges that we are trying to confront, but obviously there are some things that are way beyond our control. And I think that the discussions are ongoing now with the Ministry of Education as it relates to the transportation issues, and trying to find some resolution there in terms of a schedule that would facilitate the shortages of buses that we're likely to see. Okay.
We've heard that there are plans to divest certain departments, authorities in the government, like CBC. We heard that the Transport Authority has been included. Can you give us an update?
We have been tasked with trying to save money so that we have funds for other areas that are critically important. So things like the social services, the healthcare system, we have had to put measures in place as a government across the board. And it's not just state-owned enterprises, but we are carrying a significant burden by the state-owned enterprises, and we have to make sure that they are generating revenue and that we have cost-saving measures in place to make them more efficient. And that is really what we have been tasked to do. So the largesse and the expenditure that was taking place many years ago, our economic team has been guiding all of us in terms of how to make those cuts without making life more difficult for Barbadians. And so I think that is a work in progress in terms of bringing some balance to the challenges that we've been facing at the Water Authority. Yeah. All right. If there are no more questions.
One more question.
Sure.
I know that taxi operators are happy. Happy is a relative term, and that's only relative to the increase. Are there any other goodies in their lives that they were asking for that they didn't receive, that you are looking at?
You say goodies. I am Santia, not Santa Claus. But we have had fruitful discussions, and I will be fair and say that despite all of the protests and everything last week, I really have enjoyed the cordial relationship with this team that has met with us in terms of our stakeholders. You come to meetings sometimes and you want everything, but the truth is that we have been able, especially this morning, to be able to lay out to them what the issues are, whether it is the process processes that we have to go through, whether it is the issues of drafting, the time that sometimes things take, even with the best intentions. And I've found that they have been relatively receptive to those concerns. We have committed to a meeting. Clyde is going to meet with them between now and the 20th. We will come back after that meeting because we want to prepare ourselves for the rollout of the app. And I'm only going to do that with the input of the association. So we want to share some of what is on the horizon, but also have their input so that we can better tailor what we are about to do for them. There's no point just introducing an app, but they're not satisfied with what is being introduced. So we have to meet each other halfway. And I think, like, as of today, there is a win-win in that we have delivered as a government on the promises that we have made to them. Equally, they have a win in terms of a 15-year wait that has now come to fruition today, and it therefore, I think, provides that platform for us to build on the relationship on other matters that may be of concern. We also had the airport here this morning as well. Because this is not going to be a consultation that is in isolation. It's not just with the stakeholders at the airport who are taxi operators, because they have a direct impact on the tourists that come to the island. And therefore, we met with Gaia Inc. The chairman of BTMI was also present, and the staff from Gaia, to be able to look at some of their concerns along with the drafters, because when we come back to the table, we want to be able to incorporate not only into the legislation, but we want to be able to incorporate into the app some of the concerns that they have expressed here as well. All right. Okay, so if no other questions, I just want to take the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you to Mr. Bunthorne, Mr. Harewood. Truly appreciate it. And to Dr. Maskell for all of the assistance you have rendered to us in getting to this point. Minister Abrams, thank you for taking my calls late at night to be able to make sure that today happened, and to the entire team.
Early in the morning.
At the entire team at CPC, and to certainly the ministry staff for being able to facilitate and make sure that we were able to get to this point. And therefore, I look forward to us being able to continue to work together with the taxi operators forefront in our minds for 2023. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. I come in for drinks, sir.